three-judge panel of the Federal Appeals Court in Washington, D.C. released a unanimous opinion last week saying that Donald Trump is not immune from criminal prosecution for his attempt to stay in power after he lost re-election. And when they issued that ruling, they also tried to box him in to what he could do next. They tried to box him into appealing straight to the U.S. Supreme Court. They said, the way they ruled, they said that if Trump tried to come back to that same appeals court, if he tried to make that same court take another turn with that same case, Trump would risk the whole process speeding up, which is the last thing he wants. They said if he came back to the appeals court instead of just going straight to the Supremes, his trial on this issue would effectively be unfrozen. It would get put back on the calendar, all systems go. He might end up in court sooner than he wants to. Well, today Donald Trump did go to the Supreme Court, but he asked them to overrule that part of the appeals court ruling where they were trying to get him to speed up the process. He's asking the Supreme Court to allow him additional review from that same appeals court. He wants to be able to go to all 11 judges on that D.C. appeals court instead of just the three-judge panel that gave him the ruling thus far. And he wants to be able to do that before he appeals to the Supreme Court without risking his trial starting up as punishment. He argued in his filing with the court tonight that this court should stay this unprecedented and unacceptable departure from ordinary appellate procedures and allow President Trump's claim of immunity to be decided in the ordinary course of justice. This filing tonight from Trump and his lawyers seems to be their way of trying kind of a bank shot. They're insisting that he should get yet more review in the appeals court in D.C. before he inevitably appeals to the United States Supreme Court. He's always playing for more delay, always playing for more procedure, always playing for more time. Well, how strong is this play? How strong is his case for this? And if the Supreme Court does grant him what he's asking, what would that mean for the timing of his big federal criminal trial for trying to stay in office after he was voted out? Joining us now is Chuck Rosenberg, former U.S. attorney, senior FBI official. Chuck, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
My pleasure, Rachel.
Did I explain the basics of that correctly, that he is trying to effectively get the Supreme Court to take away that rushing tactic, that tactic by which the appeals court was trying to tell him, you got to end this appeals process at some point and get to trial?
Yes, good description. I mean, think of it conceptually this way. Three-step ladder. Step one would be the trial court. That's where the prosecutors want to be. That's where a jury would be seated, the trial would be conducted, and a verdict rendered. Prosecutors want to be there, and Mr. Trump does not. Step two on that ladder would be the appellate court, where he recently lost unanimously on his claim of absolute immunity. And what he'd like to do now is either be on rung number three, step three, the Supreme Court, or back in the appellate court. But by all means, Rachel, to avoid step one, the trial court.